The Angry Birds Classic, 2009. This is where it all began, and it's safe to say all of us have played this game at some point in our lives. It was pretty much perfect to its last detail. This game introduced all the iconic birds that became the face of the franchise. The mechanics of this game were simple, really simple. You had to take down pigs from their bases by shooting birds with a slingshot, and that was pretty much it. You could unlock different chapters and new birds by completing levels. This game also gave birth to one of the most iconic soundtracks of our generation, and don't forget the merchandise. The premise of this game revolutionized a lot of other iconic Angry Birds games that would get out down the line. Angry Birds Seasons, 2010. Rovio published the second game of the series in 2010, and it was the good old Angry Birds Seasons. This game had the same mechanics as the classic, where you took down pigs through your birds and slingshot. Except it offered a variety of new chapters, episodes, and a completely new gameplay experience. This game had 29 different episodes you could play from. Most of them were based on holidays and different seasons. A true classic. Angry Birds Rio. We saw another game from the franchise in 2010, the mighty Angry Birds Rio. It was a collaboration between Angry Birds and the animated movie Rio, which came out in 2011. The storyline follows the birds getting kidnapped and taken to Rio de Janeiro. Their goal is to escape captivity and save their friends, including the rare blue macaws from the movie. Unlike the other Angry Birds game where you took down pigs, in this one you had to clash with monkeys and an evil cockatoo based on Rio's storyline. The episodes were themed around Rio's locations, jungle, carnival, and city environments. New power-ups and abilities were introduced, including flight and explosives unique to the Rio characters. Angry Birds Rio has to be one of the greatest games from the franchise. Angry Birds Magic. This was basically the classic game, but with a little bit of tweaks. Rovio was experimenting with this game a bit because it used NFC technology, so when you tapped two NFC-compatible Nokia phones together, it would unlock new levels in Angry Birds. The premise of the game was basically the same as the others, although you might have unlocked new chapters through the NFC method. Angry Birds Space. Another big one from the Nostalgia Starter Pack is the Angry Birds Space. The name says it all, because all the levels and chapters take place in space. The premise still remains the same. However, this game introduced a different form of every bird from the regular world, and they had different abilities too. The gameplay experience was also different from the other games, as you had to deal with gravity mechanics and giant pigs to advance throughout the levels. Angry Birds Friends. The year is 2012, and the first game Rovio releases is Angry Birds Friends. The premise was basically the same, but you could compete with your friends on Facebook through tournaments and climb up the leaderboards. It was first released as a Facebook game, but later it became available on the App Store and Play Store. Angry Birds Friends actually outlived a lot of the other spin-offs. Rovio kept updating it for years because people loved the weekly tournaments. You can still play the game, as it hasn't been taken down yet. Bad Piggies. The next game from the series in 2012 was Bad Piggies. Most of you watching this video have surely played this game. If you haven't, then go and download it before Rovio takes it down. Bad Piggies genuinely has the most smithering soundtrack in video game history. The premise of this game is completely different from the previous ones. Instead of taking the pigs down with your birds, you get to play as the pigs. You're given a few parts to scrape out a vehicle, and then you are supposed to reach the finish line with that. As you advance through levels, you unlock new chapters and episodes, where you get different tools to make the most absurd-looking vehicles. This game clearly stood out from the others, as it introduced a whole new gameplay mechanic, and put more emphasis on the pig universe than the bird one. This game is an actual classic, and it's still going strong. Bad Piggies can still be downloaded and played from the App Store or Play Store. Angry Birds Space HD. Angry Birds Space, but in a higher resolution for iPads and tablets. Angry Birds Go. This was Rovio's big racing experiment. Instead of flying through the air, the birds jumped into carts and went head-to-head on crazy downhill tracks. Red was the starter, Chuck was all about speed, Bomb with the heavy crashes, and even the pigs showed up as rivals. The races were fast and a little chaotic. The tracks took you through Piggy Island in a way we'd never seen before. Angry Birds Star Wars. Now we're talking about an iconic Angry Birds game, the Angry Birds Star Wars. It was a crossover between the Angry Birds franchise and the Star Wars one. Rovio was surely cooking back then. This game introduced a whole new set of birds, villains, new chapters, and storyline. In fact, this game had so many levels and episodes that you could have got lost in them. The birds and pigs were tuned up according to the Star Wars lore, and there were a ton of Easter eggs. Angry Birds Star Wars 2. This was a prequel version of the previous one. In the first Star Wars game, you could only play as the birds to take down the bad guys, but in Star Wars 2, there were playable villains. This game introduced more characters, more maps, and a toy integration. Angry Birds Epic. Now here's where Rovio really surprised everyone once again. Angry Birds Epic wasn't your usual slingshot game at all. Instead of flinging birds into pig-built towers, Rovio went all in on making a full turn-based RPG. Yeah, Angry Birds, but with swords, shields, and magic spells. Each bird was reimagined into a fantasy role. Red became a knight with a shield, Chuck turned into a wizard shooting lightning, Bomb was basically a berserker, and the pigs showed up as enemy soldiers, shamans, and even bosses. The game had a proper storyline across Piggy Island, and instead of beating a level in 30 seconds, you'd go through long battles. Still, despite the grind, people loved how ambitious it was. Angry Birds Stella. Many people call it the most underrated game from the franchise, and that's completely valid. Instead of having your typical red bird gang, this game featured a female bird called Stella and her group of friends. What really stood out about Stella, though, was the vibe. The art style was brighter, the environments were more playful, and the story actually focused on friendship and their battles against the villain Gale. This game has always flown under the radar, but it's a classic masterpiece nonetheless. Angry Birds Transformers. Instead of flinging birds at pigs, Rovio turned them into Autobirds and Deceptihogs in this game. Red rolled up as Optimus Prime, Chuck as Bumblebee, and even the pigs got Decepticon makeovers. The game played like a side-scrolling shooter. Your bot ran forward automatically while you blasted pig towers with lasers, dodged falling debris, and transformed into a car or a plane to escape danger. It was fast and flashy. The crossover was just too good. Angry Birds mixed with Transformers shouldn't have worked, but somehow it totally did. Angry Birds 2. This was the proper successor of the classic. It had everything the classic didn't have. Better graphics, smoother animation, unique bird abilities are just to name a few. This is controversially the last good game from the franchise. After this one, things started to get a little bit sloppy on the game side of the spectrum. One of the biggest changes made to this game was the card system. Instead of a fixed lineup, you got bird cards that you could choose from during levels, which meant every playthrough could feel different. On top of that, levels had multi-stage challenges, so clearing one screen was just the start. Angry Birds 2 also features different boss battles throughout the whole game. It is still out there, making it one of the most played games from the series. Most of the games I talked about have been taken down, but here's the list of a few that you can still play. That's it for this video. Hope you guys liked it. Make sure to subscribe and stick around for more videos like this. Also, join my Discord server. The link is in the description.